He was doing about 150 sheep in a day. It's not bad for a first-year guy. He's a young bloke. His back was probably still good. But he then developed a work ethic around that. So he went from being a trainee into a commercial shearing contracting team. Now he's working on the mines in Western Australia because he's developed that work ethic. He's actually got a lot of the heavy machinery licences, and he's now earning probably 3 times what I'm earning, and he's got probably twice as many holidays. He's back in Albany, and again, he's a young bloke, 23 years old. You know, he's driving a flash car. He's got the nice clothes. He looks pretty good. He's having a good life. Again, his cousins, his brothers, his friends are all looking up to him as a bit of a model, and he actually wants to give back to the community as well. So it's about assisting in that transformation process. Environmental and social outcomes. In Meekatharra, which is in the middle of Western Australia, there was a pastoral station. Everyone had thought it was running really well until the day we decided that perhaps we might pop by and say good day to them. Because Aboriginal people in the main don't attend field days. They don't pick up the phone generally and call the department when there's an issue going wrong. Often it's tailor-made service to go to the people, breaking free of that cycle that the department's very comfortable in. To say, oh, we've engaged. Well, you haven't engaged because you obviously haven't engaged the people, this large group of people who don't access those services. They said, look, we've got a big problem. We went and did an inspection of the property. They had a massive problem. In fact, if it had got out, they could possibly have lost their property. There were some really serious issues going on that property. They didn't want to run a property, but they wanted to maintain it for a cultural reason. They were from that country, they were born there, their stories were attached to that country. They wanted to retain it so they could go out and maintain their sites, continue the law, and to continue to teach their children about their culture. So, again, through the service, sat down, understood what the people wanted. They didn't want to manage it, so we devised a way that they could still maintain that, and that was through a sublease option. So the next door neighbour came in, subleases the land, improves the infrastructure. He can use it for his cattle, and the people can, in the contract, written into the contract, that they'll have access to the country when they need to have access to it. They can maintain their sites, they can stay on the homestead, and they can also have first priority of any employment and training outcomes that come from that. So it's a win-win situation. It's understood that the men of that particular corporation had walked away, throwing their hands up, I don't want to do it, and the women were the strong ones, and the grandchildren, but they couldn't maintain it. So we've got now a really good opportunity that in 15 years' time, 10 years' time, that land's still there for the grannies to grow up and maybe take over that lease at some stage. We are very accountable of the public dollars that we spend in the project, and we have serious evaluation and validation of our work. And we've paid independent people come and assess our work, and we've also got our own internal valuations, quarterly reviews, biannual reviews, annual reviews, 2-year reviews, very bureaucratic. But it's about a grassroots approach now starting to have a very strong evaluation and justification purpose. Regional role model, again, just some of the, some of the achievements of the program. I guess to us this is a bit of a side prize. It's nice to be recognised, but there's still a lot of work out there to be done. The United Nations has recognised the work in which we've done. We've dual Premier Award winners for excellence in public service, and also Prime Minister's Award for excellence in public service. South African and African countries have come and looked at the work that we're doing and are wanting to take and implement a very similar model over in South Australia. In South Africa. I'm not aware of another service in Australia that delivers a holistic approach that sits down and really just breaks the mould of, well, what is it? You know, we can't do that. We get that a lot. We get that a lot when we liaise with other agencies. Well, we can't. We'd love to help, but that's not part of our agenda. That's not part of our agenda. It's close, but it doesn't quite fit. It's about really trying to break that mould and having staff committed, entrepreneurial, innovative, enthusiastic, to try and find ways around that and make it work. And that's been the innovation within the department. I'd just like to finish off very quickly, I'm sorry that was rushed, just with a 4-minute talking head DVD. These are the landholders that we work with. So it's right from the north to the south, and then we'll open it up to questions.
What Tim's doing now is bringing a lot of these places up to standard, you know, like a lot of work, and then just planning and cattle-wise, and getting better herbs, controlling your herbs, and better management overall, you know.
So when Tim come along and they join us, and they saw us everything, that from the cattle and the young people, that we call them Agriculture Academy, and they train the young people out of brand cattle. If we're going to come to a self-sufficient and self-determination, and we got to show that, and now we can run the property.
I've learned it all from my mentor, Bob Connery from the Kingsford. He sort of put that information into them, and we talked about it, and then had a schedule on the paper, and then go out and market it and just see how it's going to happen, and then we got a bit of grant for it, and then started to build on it.
It was good to get this company to train, because to know, because half of the corporation around the timber didn't know about this sort of thing. We didn't get anywhere, so we were thinking, we sat down one day and said, well, we got kids and we got grandkids, and we need to show our kids what we can do. Not when we pass on, not leaving them with nothing. When we leave them, they got a business to run. That sort of thing. Think about the future of our kids.
Now it don't sound like much, but it sure got the tongues talking.
Now with the sales project and seeing how it's starting to make inroads into ILC properties that have been purchased here, but also the Aboriginal Land Trust properties, there's starting to be some light at the end of the tunnel.
Before I came on board, we were sort of struggling. We were sort of on our own with ways to go.
It's a comfort thing knowing that someone's there that you can actually go to. Not a lot of the other agencies have that specific person that you can go to and say, these are our problems.
It's not even the technical advice that we have been lacking in now. It's vital. It's really, it's ready to be used for the landowners. And I think that's the main benefits that we get out of it, is that we can call on staff in sales to come along and assist us.
That department, planning group, is helping us to do things in the future. They're listening to us, not telling us, they're listening to us, our needs, and that's a good way, because it'll help us in the long run.
I hope that one day we'll see John Deere tractors going around on the farm. At least I've got a hat here. Got John Deere written up here, at least at the start.
I hope that the agricultural department will see the benefit of having people like Kelly and Kate in that team and continue, because without their support, a lot of people like us won't know what to do when it comes to agriculture stuff.
Thank you.
Short of time, so if we could just limit it to maybe 2 questions. 3 questions, 3 answers, 3 minutes.
Thanks, it was a really fascinating presentation, and I was really interested in the comment you made about engagement. You said,
Microphone, and if you could identify yourself.
Hi, my name's Genevieve Fitzgerald. I work with the Victorian Commissioner for Environmental Sustainability and Stakeholder Engagement and Communications. I was really interested in the comment that you made about engagement. It was something, it's almost a throwaway line, and you were talking about people say they've, organisations and agencies say, well, we have engaged, and you made the point, but that's not really engagement. And I was wondering if you could just tease that out a little bit more.
Yeah, certainly. the engagement often a lot of departments maybe innocently do is about the engagement of their outcomes. It's about, well, we're just here to talk about this. And often when you sit down with the community, the issues are so much broader, and maybe you start to understand the reasons why those particular outcomes need to be engaged. And not a lot of communities and not a lot of departments actually put the time, effort and energy into sitting down and understanding fully. And that takes a long time. That's not a 3-hour meeting. It's about being prepared to sit down and listen. And often that listening takes a long time before the talking starts. So it's that meaningful engagement. Our officers have been engaged for many, many, many years now. We're just starting to listen. You know, there's a lot to say. There's a lot of mistrust to get over. And I think that can be expanded, not just within Aboriginal communities, but within the general population as well. It's not expecting people to come up to you straight away in the first couple of meetings and say, well, these are all our issues. We thought about them. It's about teasing them out. It's about using different methods to explore exactly what their issues are, and often about how to identify those and what they actually are. Oh.
Thank you. I was interested by your comment, Catherine Cusack from New South Wales, that agriculture let you do this because their goal is to increase production. The goal of those families there clearly was to have something to pass on to their children, and your goal is to, I guess, keep Indigenous properties in Indigenous ownership. They're 3 different goals, and the collaboration. I'm just wondering, is that when you talk about evaluating the outcomes, are you telling the department, you know, you're satisfying one criteria for them, and then when you're talking to communities, it's a different criteria? And isn't that a struggle when people are participating but for different reasons?
Yeah, they're very different outcomes, but they are aligned. They're at opposite ends of the scale. So the community come to us and say, we want to use this property for our employment and the future. The property's not in a position to be able to do that. We can say from a departmental, the reason I get money is to assist in the production. The department doesn't necessarily want to know about all the other stuff, about the capacity development. That's not to say that we don't. We're certainly very interested in that. But there is an evolution of that development, and what we say to the department is it needs to start here with a goal about what people want for their property, and that's about that employment. You can only get employment when you transition that property into a business, and then with that business outcome, there's the production. Production is the end result of a good process.
One more question.
Yeah, Ian Adotia, Department of Human Services, Victoria. I'm looking back at the Genesis, and there seemed to be a trigger point where you identified this maverick, I guess, who's operated out of scope and taken a risk and done something which he's felt driven to do. I wonder if you could comment on that's a trigger point and that's a balance point, and where we seem to have got to is where you've got a government agency which has operationalised that, taken that on board and adopted that as a sort of mainstream sort of policy approach. At that balance point, what do you think were the key things which went from that one person operating out of scope and moving you to where you are now?
Yeah, good question. A lot of good ideas out there that unfortunately don't get a lot of traction. Key triggers would have been one, his particular passion and that relationship with that community to demonstrate over a period of time that there were some outcomes that came as a result of his intervention there. Support at the higher level, support within management, finding a champion somewhere within executive, the DG, the minister, make them aware of the innovation somehow, and finding your champion and then driving that process and getting that support back down to allow that particular project to keep happening. And for a long time it flew under the radar until such time as there were so many outcomes that people just couldn't ignore. You couldn't continue to stick your head in the sand and say, you know, we don't believe it. It's about the success of the program, and the success breeds success. And it has snowballed. I won't say it's entirely endorsed yet. The department is a very conservative department. People are often research-based, but this is a very innovative program, and it's taken a long time. It's a completely different shift to where people are used to and comfortable in working. So we're still going through that transition, but we're a long way ahead of where we were, and we had champions that we're very thankful for.